There are days when you are not exactly happy with the way your life is going, but the moment you imagine changing it, something in you pulls back. You think about signing up for the class, applying for the job, starting the project, going to that event alone, having the conversation you keep postponing, moving your life even slightly in the direction you say you want. And for a few minutes, it feels possible. Then the excuses begin to sound very reasonable. You are too busy right now. You need more time. You should wait until you feel more prepared. Maybe this is not the right season. Maybe you are not the kind of person who does this sort of thing. Maybe it is smarter to stay where you are, because at least here, you know how everything works. And after a while, you do not even call it fear anymore. You call it being realistic. You call it knowing yourself. You call it choosing peace. But somewhere underneath all of that, there is a quieter feeling you do not always want to name. You are not fully satisfied with staying where you are. You're just more afraid of what might happen if you leave. From the outside, this can look like laziness. It can look like a lack of discipline, a lack of ambition, a lack of courage. People love to say that growth begins at the edge of your comfort zone, as if the only thing standing between you and a better life is the decision to be more fearless. But that is too simple. A comfort zone is not just a place where you feel comfortable. It is a place where you still know who you are. Inside it, you know the rules. You know what you're good at. You know how people see you. You know what to avoid, what to repeat, what to say, what not to risk. Even if it is not exciting, it is predictable. And predictability can feel like safety, especially when the rest of life already feels loud, uncertain, and full of things you cannot control. So when you step into something new, the discomfort is not only about the new thing itself, it is about what the new thing does to your sense of self. A person who feels competent suddenly becomes a beginner. A person who feels confident suddenly feels awkward. A person who is used to being in control has to ask basic questions, make mistakes, and be seen trying before they are good. That is the part people often skip. Sometimes you're not afraid of the opportunity. You are afraid of meeting the version of yourself who is not good at it yet. You are afraid of the first day, the first attempt, the first awkward conversation, the first moment when your old identity no longer protects you. You are afraid of the gap between who you have been and who you might become. So the comfort zone starts to feel less like a preference and more like a shelter. It holds together the version of you that still feels steady, and that shelter matters. There is nothing wrong with needing familiar things. There is nothing wrong with having routines, places, people, and rhythms that help you breathe again. A person cannot live forever in a state of challenge. You need rooms where you do not have to perform. You need mornings that feel ordinary. You need parts of your life where your body does not have to constantly scan for what could go wrong. Safety is not weakness. Stability is not failure. Rest is not avoidance. The problem begins when the place that helps you recover becomes the place you hide from every version of life that asks more of you. At first, this hiding is almost invisible. You do not make one dramatic choice to shrink your life. You just skip one thing, then another. You do not go to the event. You do not send the message. You do not ask the question. You do not apply. You do not try the thing you keep thinking about. You tell yourself it probably was not that important, and maybe each individual decision makes sense. But over time, a pattern forms. Your world becomes organized around not feeling uncertain. You start choosing only the paths where you already know how you will look. You stop entering rooms where you might be new. You stop moving toward desires that would require you to be seen before you are polished. This is how a life gets smaller without ever collapsing. It does not always happen through failure. Sometimes it happens through repeated safety. The most dangerous part is that your mind can become very skilled at making the small life sound wise. You start saying, I'm just not that kind of person. I don't really need that. It's not worth the stress. I'm fine where I am. And sometimes those sentences are honest, but sometimes they are fear wearing the language of self knowledge. This is where the question becomes more personal than people like to admit. Are you actually choosing this life? Or have you simply become loyal to the version of yourself that knows how to survive it? Because there is a difference between resting and retreating. Resting gives you energy back. Retreating quietly teaches you that anything unfamiliar is a threat. Resting makes you more able to return to life. Retreating makes the world outside your routines feel bigger and more dangerous than it really is. When your comfort zone is healthy, you come back to it and feel restored. When it becomes a cage, you come back to it and feel a little more afraid to leave next time. And yet, the answer is not to force yourself into every terrifying thing just to prove you are strong. That is the other mistake. A lot of self development advice treats discomfort as if it is automatically growth. If it hurts, it must be working. If it scares you, it must be important. If you are overwhelmed, you must be leveling up. But not every difficult thing makes you bigger. Some forms of discomfort stretch you, others drain you. Some challenges make your world wider. Others only teach your body that change is dangerous. There is a kind of discomfort that feels shaky but alive. You are nervous but still present. You are unsure but still able to learn. You make mistakes but you can recover. You feel exposed but not destroyed. That kind of discomfort can become growth. But there is another kind that leaves you numb, panicked, ashamed, or shut down. You are not expanding, you are just enduring. You are not learning. You are trying to survive the experience without falling apart. The point is not to worship discomfort. The point is to learn the difference between discomfort that opens you and discomfort that overwhelms you. Because growth is not measured by how much stress you can tolerate. It is measured by whether your life becomes more honest, more capable, and more spacious after you face it. So maybe the better question is not, how do I get out of my comfort zone? Maybe the better question is, how do I make my comfort zone wider? That shift matters. If you try to destroy your need for safety, you do not become free. You become tense. You become performative. You start treating your own fear like an enemy you have to defeat. But if you never touch anything new, you do not become safe either. You become accustomed to a softer cage. The middle path is quieter than most advice makes it sound. It is not a dramatic leap. It is not a personality makeover. It is the practice of entering something just unfamiliar enough that you have to grow, but not so overwhelming that you disappear inside the pressure. For one person, that might mean going to a place alone that they would normally avoid. Not a foreign country, not a huge life change, just one unfamiliar room, one unfamiliar street, one small experience where they prove to themselves that being alone in the unknown will not break them. For another person, it might mean learning a skill they have avoided because they hate being bad at things. Sitting with that clumsy beginning for 30 minutes without turning it into a verdict about their intelligence. For someone else, it might be telling the truth in a relationship a little sooner than usual. Not confessing everything all at once. Not creating chaos, just allowing one honest sentence to exist before it gets edited into something safer. The size of the action is not the point. From the outside, it may look small, but inside a person's life, it may be a real expansion. The question changes from, am I brave enough to do this, to, what is the smallest real step that would make my world slightly wider? That is a more useful question because it does not shame you for needing safety. It also does not let fear make every decision for you. A small real step has a particular feeling. It makes you uncomfortable but not erased. It makes you pay attention but does not make you abandon yourself. It asks something new from you, but it still leaves room for recovery. And recovery is part of the process. You step out. You learn. You get stretched. Then you return to what steadies you. Not because you failed, but because stability is what allows expansion to become part of you. This is how the unfamiliar slowly becomes familiar. The first time your body says, I do not know this place. The next time it says, I have been here once. After enough small returns, the boundary moves. What once felt outside your life begins to belong to it. That is what it means for a comfort zone to grow. Not that you stop feeling fear, not that you become someone who loves risk, not that every challenge suddenly feels exciting. It means more of life becomes livable to you. More rooms become enterable. More conversations become possible. More versions of yourself become allowed. And this is also where you have to be honest. Some things are not avoided because they are wrong for you. They are avoided because they would require you to stop identifying with the person who has always avoided them. That is a different kind of fear. It is not just, what if I fail? It is, who am I if I try? Who am I if I am seen learning? Who am I if I am not immediately good? Who am I if the people who know the old version of me do not understand the new one? This is why staying the same can feel strangely loyal. You may be loyal to an old identity, loyal to old expectations, loyal to the version of yourself that learned how to stay safe by staying predictable. But at some point, loyalty to the old self can become abandonment of the future self. Not all at once, not dramatically, just quietly, through every choice where fear gets to pretend it is wisdom. A healthier way to hold this is not to attack the part of you that wants safety. That part has probably helped you survive more than you give it credit for. It kept you from going too far, too fast. It brought you back when things felt like too much, but it should not be the only part of you that gets to choose. The part of you that wants more also deserves a voice. Not more in the loud, endless, achievement-driven sense. More is in more range, more honesty, more capacity, more contact with life, more ability to enter the world without needing everything to be familiar first. You do not need to become reckless to grow. You do not need to turn yourself into someone who is always chasing risk. You do not need to prove that nothing scares you. You only need to stop letting fear decide the entire size of your life. A comfort zone should be a place you can return to. It should not be the border of everything you are allowed to become. So, the next time you feel yourself pulling back from something new, do not rush to insult yourself. Do not rush to call it laziness, and do not automatically obey it either. Get more specific. Ask what you are actually afraid of losing in that moment. Control, competence, the image of being put together, the comfort of not being seen trying, the safety of staying the person everyone already knows how to understand. Then ask a smaller, more honest question. What step would be new enough to stretch me, but small enough that I can stay with myself while I take it? That question will not make fear disappear, but it may stop fear from disguising itself as your whole personality. Because the deeper question is not only, am I in my comfort zone? The deeper question is, what if I learn to call safe, simply because it is familiar to my fear?